It's about dang time. Yeesh. Bone Island is something else. It dropped out of nowhere with such a weird setup and concept, one which left barely anyone able to predict just how impactful the song would end up being. Every single note in this song oozes so much personality and energy, and since the day it came out, I've been anticipating this video, but also dreading it. There is no easy way to go about this song for YSM. How do you rank any of these amongst each other sincerely? I don't usually say this for YSM because I feel like at the end of the day our judgments are solid, but for this specific episode, I'd take everything I say with a pinch of salt. Anything could realistically place higher or lower depending on personal taste, and heck, my own opinions are drastically different from the list we've created. Alright, let's start off with the bottom three, or the shattered remains of this category, since Bone Island has practically disintegrated any attempts at trying to create one. Yeah, making a bottom three is literally not going to be possible, since saying a monster is bad on this island is just laughably wrong. We did manage to scourge up some dishonorable mentions, so I guess for the sake of consistency, I'll just go over those. Pechidna is kind of a copycat monster, doing only melodies that are covered by another monster. This leaves it a tad bit underwhelming in the song's long run, but it gets points for being such a cool monster in every other way. Plinkaju is one of my personal favorite monsters on Bone Island. Everything about it is so amazing musically. The accents it adds to the verses are so amazingly perfect, and that ever so slight tinge of dissonance at the end of each track is just to die for. Why is it a dishonorable mention? Well, while it may be a great monster, it's a terrible quad. Boss monsters should do more, especially with the magicals. When you compare Plinkachu's impact to Glottic and Platy, you start to see the fall off. So that's literally everything that's even remotely bad on the song, and I think you've noticed that neither of those monsters are even, well, remotely bad. Which means we're currently in another Sugarbus situation, so let's extend that top 3 to a top 5 just so I can talk about this island more. This is going to be very wordy, so just get prepared for this one. Number 5 is quite possibly the perfect single element, Calacula. This monster is what instantly got me hooked on the song when it first came out. The second I heard its rhythm, I was entranced in what this island would have to offer. What's weird about this monster is that it does way more for the song than most triples do for their respective songs, yet it still feels perfectly balanced for a single elemental. The impact Calacula has on the song is deceptively large, being practically the entire foundation of the fundamental core. The build-up it adds in the opening as well is so solid at perfectly setting the tone of the song moving forward that I could honestly place it here for that alone. The fact that Calacula is that good and is still only at number 5 is a true testament to the absolute bliss and transcendent quality that this island brings forward. Coming in at number 4, we have one of my all-time favorite new monsters, the ever kooky Uduk. On the surface, this monster doesn't appear to do all that much, since it's only about 6 notes played out on a long chords that loop about 3 times, but this thing goes deep. First thing that needs to be said is just how amazing the sound alone is, to the point where I honestly cannot tell if it is an authentic recording or not. That always will get you points in YSM, since real instruments just make songs sound all the more, well, professional for lack of a better term. Sound aside, the actual track itself is also really good, being a really nice counterharmony to the chords that play alongside it, and it accents the melody in such an almost mystical sort of way. Lastly, the placement in the song is so good, going from the Kana verse that has this super fast tempo to Uduk joining into it to add that sense of wonder, to going to a lone Uduk solo with all the hype elements cut out, and oh my gosh, this island is just so good, I can't even. In third place, we have the monster I literally just mentioned, Kana. Did you ever notice how absolutely wild it is that Kana is able to play full triplets when Wither is hammering out a constant quarter note melody and it still doesn't feel jarring? Either way, Kana is an absolute masterpiece on this island, and nothing can change my mind on that. The fast rhythm mixed with the amazing vocal performance along with coming off the end of the Fangler verse just makes for a real amazing mix-up to the song's pacing. We've talked about Kana many times before, covering all of its strengths and all of its weaknesses, so by this point I think you get the gist of what I wanted to say for this monster. Only other thing to really bring up is the fact that it's one of the only new additions to the verses reprise, and yet it still feels like an entirely new one just because of how much this monster adds. That is a lot of praise. Oh, how you guys must be getting tired of us constantly raising this monster higher and higher on its pedestal, but once more I gotta give a top 3 spot to Stog. Like always, Stog is the core of the song as a whole. With only Clacula and it, you have a perfectly listenable and enjoyable song. Stog's tracks themselves are your usual Stog business with a bit more going on under the arpeggiator, and a new take on the monster during the banjo verse. Starting off with the first track, and I could be wrong, but it feels like the rhythm within this one is slightly different when compared to Stog's many other islands. Like, it's not a perfectly even arpeggio. This is really cool because it means that at least to an extent, this track was handcrafted instead of just automated. So that's some instant credit beyond the normal credit given. Second track's a little hard to really notice in the full song, but if you give it the right setup and really focus, you'll be pleasantly surprised to hear that it actually is really good. If there ever was a takeaway from the series, it's showing everyone that Stog is a borderline perfect monster with a spotless track record musically. Alrighty, at number 1 we have a clear winner. Honestly, the hardest part about this video was choosing everything from 5 to 2, but number 1 was pretty much instantly decided on unanimously. Wither on this island is like, how did they even do this? It's so good. Wither does so much, and it's surprising that it can do so, yet still effortlessly leave so much room for the others. I don't even know how it's possible to leave a piece both melodically vague while having one of the most beautiful melodies playing throughout the entire piece. Obviously, the first track is an undeniable masterpiece with a frantic yet gorgeous melody that pulls you in the second it starts playing in the song, amping you up the pace and setting up for the thrumble perfectly. Then we have the second track, and not only is it another amazingly perfect melody to the tone of that verse, it's also completely different from what mostly everything else is doing, yet shockingly it never feels intrusive or like it's covering anything up. I don't know how Candelabra on Space can play 7 notes and cover everything up, yet Wither plays 32 in its first track and 42 in its second track, yet everything else so effortlessly plays alongside it. Oh, also, low-hanging fruit, but Wisp's my favorite monster, yada yada bias, needed to say it so nobody else had to. Honorable mentions include all of the other monsters, so let's go over them because why not? Toejammer is on this island what it wanted to be on Psychic Island. On the surface, both of those tracks sound very similar in composition and placement, but trust me, this one pulls it off immeasurably better. Noggin and Hollow don't do as much as Clacula in terms of percussive makeup, but their contribution is still super important to the song in terms of build-up. These two are part of the reason the song's build-up in the opening is so amazing. Flog at first just appears to be doing its standard Flog affair with the usual transitional vocal to accompany the other two, but the second it starts playing those high notes, I live for that track. Fangler's track record, if you couldn't tell already, is very spotty, being bottom or dishonorable every island we've done so far. This island finally breaks that streak because of just how catchy and fun the tune is. It's not as good as the OG, but it's the strongest track released since then. Denshas are such a unique concept, and their execution is very well handled. The whole track isn't really all that spectacular, but I just wanted to mention them because, come on! Just look at them. Thrumble had a more than a year-long break, and having this as a return island is really heartwarming, honestly. I was a little worried when I heard that Thrumble was going to be on this island because honestly I really like the monster, and it would have been really upsetting if they did it dirty. But nope, this track slaps so hard, and say it with me, it sets up the tone of the song's opening perfectly. Banjaw is a really funny monster that has such a snazzy and interesting melody. At first, people kind of overlooked it because it just does what Pechidna does and nothing else, but honestly, looking back on this track, Banjaw is superior to Pechidna, and nothing will persuade me otherwise. Another thing to mention is that the castle on this island is pretty good. It adds a good amount of bass which allows Stog to be more inventive, and its funny slide thing it does during the Banjaw verse is really interesting. Alright, well that's Bone Island, and I can't wait any longer. I have to talk about the song's composition. You start with Noggin and Stog, reeling you in with an inviting yet vaguely ominous tone. Calacula then starts pounding out an insanely fast percussive track that counteracts the slow and methodical tracks that came before it, instantly raising the song from ominous to tense, as if something is lurking around. Wither comes in to raise what Calacula set up to an even higher degree, while Thrumble's track raises up what Stog and Noggin set up, which is like the most amazing thing I could ever listen to. Then Hollow comes in to really solidify the thump of the percussion, while Pikachu's track adds this creepy, whimsical essence to the verse. All of that is just the beginning of the song, and it only gets better the deeper you go, from the way the Fangler verse instantly changes it from an ominous tune to a weirdly almost macabre yet playful section that throws you off your feet, to the verse right after where Kana mixes up the melody of the opening and Calacula has that pause at the beginning, and it all leads into the Udu's Jolo, and oh my gosh, the song is so well paced. I could go on for hours about this one because it is a true piece of art, and BBB should be praised to no end for the creation of a piece so intricate and masterful. We've done a lot of islands since the start of the series, but we still have many more to go, so I wonder what you guys will vote for next time. Barring non-composition islands like Colosseum and Composer, we got everything open again, so go wild with choices, and as always, I'll see you all in the next video. Okay, honestly, at the time I wasn't really thinking about doing this because I honestly thought when I made that tier, nothing else would ever have been able to reach up there, but from the things I've said about this island, this thing's going right up with Sugar Bush. Bone Island is an anomalous marvel of song composition. It is so almost medley level of quality, like things so subtly add to the song in so many ways. Flog's high notes are a perfect example. That's not something BBB wouldn't normally do. Everything about this island is perfect. I don't understand how people don't like this song. This is the best song in MSM that BBB has made, duh.